Welcome back to winter's morning. It's sunny outside, but it's cold. And you're gonna have to get used to seeing me wearing this all the time because I hate the cold. Now my last video was kind of depressing, maybe, to some folk. Described as emo by one of my friends. Yeah, it was a bit sad, wasn't it? Never mind. This video, we're going to pick up that vibe and we're going to go back to positivity, okay? So I have something pretty exciting to share with you, and I'm really, if you can't tell already, I'm kind of like, I'm that excited. I'm mumbling on. Fucking street is going mad. What the fuck? Like, I'm trying to, like, ugh. Okay, so I kind of left off a bit meh. Now, and I am sorry for you as the viewer to see that and have to have that feeling when you come off the end of the video, but at the end of the day I'm just a normal dude. I'm just like nothing special. So I have good days, have bad days, and I apologize for that. But this video, it's a high. This video is a high. Welcome back to the garage. The GTO is parked here. The GTO is in the garage because obviously of that water leak that we were trying to establish. I still haven't found it. Troublemaker's there. Skoda is not on the driveway. Okay. Now a little bit of an update. Now Skoda is it's working. Okay, it's not working. It's driving, but it's yeah. Annabelle's at work. She's got the Skoda, so I can't really give you an update on that car. However, there is going to be an update coming on that with that car. As I mentioned in the last vlog that I was going to do everything myself. Maybe not. Maybe not. Yes. On to the next positive subject with the Super Coupe channel. Now I've been harping on about this for a while, and if you've been following me for a while, you'll know about this, and you'll know that, and you'll probably be as excited as I am to see this back. I'm not going to delay anymore, but officially GFJ, my other Skyline, is home. So let's rewind before I actually show you the delivery, because I actually did like a whole it arriving kind of video, but the weather was completely pants and it started to rain, you know, so I probably said I was going to wash it in this video, but yeah, enjoy this bit of a clip where it arrives and you see it drive for the very first time since 2017. Enjoy. We have a visitor.
One bumper.
GFJ's bumper. A year and a half we sent this car away and it's home. It's home. He's had a swanky new paint job in his car. You can tell where my money's gone. Oh. Carbon handles. I can't wait to wash GFJ. Flame my neck. That's probably what I'm going to be doing today. Just giving it a good clean. There she is. Listen to that. I can't believe it's actually running under its own power.
They're yours.
Thank you very much. Look at the smile on the face. Look at the smile on the face.
I need to go.
I know. Oh well. Oh. This is emotional for me. This is emotional because there's something about this car. It's this car. She's looking a bit untidy at the moment, but we shall sort her out. The wheels will be changed. She needs a good wash. Bumper, which is over there, will be put back on while she's standing. I finally have the keys back and she drives under her own power. So how are them apples, eh? GFJ driving under her own power? I honestly can't stop smiling. This car has got a special place in my heart. I've said this on my Instagram that to many people this will just be another pile of scrap, another bloody, just another car. But to me there's something more, okay? I'm not vlogging outside at this point in time because it's windy as hell. So you're gonna have to have a look at my untidy garage, and I'm very sorry, but I will be tidying it up and sorting this out. Let's stop messing about and let's get on with GFJ. I just need to take a minute to reflect on where I'm actually sitting. I am sitting in the seat of my original Skyline. The Skyline that I started this channel on. I've missed this car. I really have missed this car. She's filthy. She's absolutely filthy. She is covered in dust, and so I'm gonna give her a clean. The ECU is still lying on the floor because, like I've said, this car needs a map. Now I'm sitting in the car because it's windy as hell, and I don't want the audio to be completely knacked for your viewing purposes. So where are we now with this car and this car being home? Sorry about the traffic if you can hear that. Right, now I need to explain where we're at with this car and the current stage of what the next thing's going to be. As it stands, mineral oil, which is the running oil, that's still in it, so I need to drop that out. Not as of yet. It does need a map because it's still on the base map. When it idles, it is a bit ropey because obviously base map, 1000cc injectors, it's obviously chucking in a lot of fuel. Now there is another thing that I need, another bridge that I need to cross with this car before I can go on a map, and that is hydraulic lifters. Now they are a bit tappety when the car gets up to temperature, when the engine gets up to temperature. I have been advised by Michael to change them and before I go on a map, but with that it's an expensive job because hydraulic lifters are or Conceptor tuning as they've been priced is 90 quid for 4. There's 24 of them, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that's £540 just on hydraulic lifters. So it's not, and where I'm at, my previous video, I need to be honest, I need to be open, and I'm not financially flush at the moment to be throwing that kind of money at any of the cars, to be honest. I am trying, I'm just an average dude, but we will get there. I will eventually get there. So it needs a set of lifters, and that's before labour, that's before, you know, it goes for a map. For now, I'm probably going to put the white wheels back on the car eventually, and that's only because these wheels, I think, I don't know, I want it looking a little bit better. The bumper's obviously going to go back on for protection of the front end. I don't really want it sitting out the weathers with the bumper completely off. The bumper is in the conservatory, and that is going to go back on the car, at least make it a complete car. I will be putting my fat wheels back on. Those tyres need changing anyway. These tyres are shot, but at least let's make the car a little bit more presentable while it sits on the driveway. I know it's going to make no difference to the build and to actually driving it, but it's going to make me feel better if I can look at it and it's a little bit more presentable. It's just for my own peace of mind. I know, sad. Theoretically, the car would have probably gone in the garage, but we haven't got to the bottom of the GTO with that water leak. I haven't even looked at it. I've left the tools underneath the car on the floor from the last time I worked on a car. I need to tidy that up. I need to sort the garage out. It needs to be decluttered and get a lot of shit thrown away, because I'm very good at collecting rubbish. So this car needs a hell of a good clean. The seats are fucking minging. There is dust everywhere. There's a layer of dust everywhere. So I'd like to spend at least a few hours on this car just giving it a good clean. All the crevices are covered in crap from it being stood for so long. Down the bottom is the ECU. It is running a Link ECU. So what this build has entailed. Right, what's changed? From the time that it blew up, it was running a Grady intake manifold. It was running the GTX, the Garrett GTX 3071R turbo. It was running a Hyper Performance, I think that's the name, Hyper Performance exhaust manifold. And that manifold, which is still sitting on the floor in the garage, just completely cracked. It was cracking on me every 2 to 3 months. Partly, I think, because I didn't have any flexi in the exhaust. There was no flexi in the exhaust. It was just a solid bolted down pipe. So I'm putting it down to that. But because that exhaust completely, it cracked as many times as it did, it completely shut itself and it was beyond repair now. I did stick it up for sale in the hope that somebody would maybe buy it and try and repair it, or maybe somebody would take the flange to put onto an RB25. I don't know, but it's still sat there. It's probably just going to go in the scrap bin. So the exhaust manifold needed changing. That was a necessity. The turbo. Now, one of my personal main reasons for going from an Apex CFC, because that was the ECU that was on the car and it was producing 425, dynoed by EvoTune. The main reason for me going from the Apexi to the Link is troublemakers on a Link, and so it's ease for both cars just to be on the same thing. I get familiar with both things. The other main reason is when we pulled this car apart, the Apexi needed a MAF sensor, and I'm going to put it down to that the MAF sensor was a little bit too close to the turbo. Please bear in mind that I am not a mechanic. I am not the one that built this car up with those particular mods, with the GTX 3071R turbo. I bought the car as is. It's the first Skyline I've ever owned. It's the first proper performance car I've ever owned of this caliber. I'm going to put it down to that MAF sensor was a little bit too close to the turbo, because obviously a MAF sensor's got gauze on either side. That gauze had been sucked through it, frayed, and it went right through the turbo, right through to the engine. So the turbo compressor wheel, all the blades, they were serrated. It needed completely overhaul. So the turbo needed a rebuild. The other thing is that the head, when we pulled the head off when the car blew up, and the reason why the car blew up was the crank let go. We pulled the head off, and the bottom of the head, you could actually see the imprints of where that gauze was hitting. So that was one of my main reasons why I went for the Link, because the Link obviously doesn't need a map. It runs on a map sensor, eliminating another problem to go wrong. I think what I had in my mind when I rebuilt this car for the bloody second time, I wanted in my mind to eliminate all the reasons potentially that are not engine related that could go wrong, because we know that the RB25, especially the Spec 1 RB25, they are renowned for oil problems and piston ring problems, and with those two being weaknesses, I didn't want any other factor that I was bolted on or was bolted on to contribute to that problem as best as I could. Yes, that was an expensive decision because I ended up changing an ECU. A Link ECU is not cheap. I haven't even had the bloody thing mapped. The exhaust manifold. What I've done with the exhaust manifold, as I've said that it's sitting on the floor, the original one's sitting on the floor, I bit the bullet and I went for a 6-boost manifold. 6-boost manifold, again, is not cheap, but apparently is the McCoy to go for if you want reliability. Troublemaker is on a 6-boost manifold and had nothing but mint. I nearly said nothing but bother there. I didn't. Nothing but mint ownership with it so far. The previous owner who put the exhaust manifold on swore by it and absolutely adores the manifold. And owning that car has introduced me to a lot of other owners who also run the same manifold and have nothing but praise to say about these manifolds. So yes, it's gone for a 6-boost manifold, Link ECU, and I've also gone for a Turbo Smart wastegate, a 45mm turbo wastegate on this car. Originally it was a Tile 38mm. When I spoke to Wayne, who supplied those parts, he advised that no smaller than a 45mm wastegate with the turbo and exhaust manifold that I was going. So we changed that as well. Yeah, so that's the hot side. Expensive. On the cold side, now I did this and I probably didn't. No, I didn't. It's not probably. There's no probably about it. I shouldn't have. Didn't have to, but I did. Okay. It was already running the Agredi intake manifold. It was running a standard fuel rail with that, with side feed injectors, 740cc Ditchworks side feed injectors. Now, me being me, I knew that I had this bloody shiny turbo coming and this new manifold, and the hot side was all going to be nice and smart. I'd already purchased, months and months before that, I'd already purchased RB26 cam covers in polished as well to go along with the turbo. So I knew that it was going to be a little bit more presentable, and the original rail was a bit meh. I wanted to bling it up a little bit more, and at that time I had so much on my plate and I didn't really understand the differences between injector sizes. And when I meant injector sizes, I'm not talking about cc's, I'm talking about diameter. Now, when I very first bought this car, as you do when you buy a brand new car, you go straight onto eBay and you oh yeah, I'll buy this. And I spontaneously bought a fuel rail, a Agredi fuel rail. And it's a 10.5mm fuel rail. I didn't understand what that meant. Yeah, so it turns out that that's completely useless to me. That is for an RB26, and it's for RB26 injectors. No use to me. With buying that fuel rail, I like realizing that was kind of scrap to me. I ended up having to look for another fuel rail because I wanted to bling everything up. Found it easier just to buy an all-in-one kit, and I bit the bullet and I bought an Otaku Garage intake manifold that came already with throttle body and fuel rail. Now that fuel rail, it needed 14mm. It needed 14mm injectors. Bearing in mind it's been a long time since I ordered these parts, well over probably a couple of years actually. Conceptor Tuning, I rang them up, said this is where I'm at, and they helped me, and they supplied me with a set of 1000cc injector dynamics injectors for it. Yeah, so it was an all-in-one kit. I probably didn't need to change all of that, but I was swayed a lot with the Otaku Garage intake because the top of it was very much like RB26, hence I was going RB26 covers. I really like the look and the streamline and all that kind of crap. It looks mint, in my opinion. I'm really happy with it. Time will tell. I do know somebody that's got one of these intake manifolds, and he's running them, and he's running some big power with no problem. So I am pretty excited about this. on first initial feedback on that intake manifold, it's very noisy as in air. You can hear a lot of air moving. So when the very first video I heard of this car running that MB Motorsport sent me, I actually thought it was very metally, but it's not. It's just that intake manifold is just bloody loud. There's so many other things. It's got a new clutch because when we took everything apart, the clutch was on its last legs. So I had to change that anyway. And the clutch was doing some weird things before the car actually blew up. Now why the car blew up, it blew up on a crank let go because I think it was a number of things. It was a little bit of me, to be honest. It was a little bit of me not being as aware as I should have been. Not as knowledgeable as I should have been with a kind of car like this. There were symptoms that this car was starting to show. Bearing in mind, I used to use this as a daily driver for a couple of years. And there were symptoms that were showing that I ignored. It's my fault because I ignored them. And one of those symptoms is when this car was on full boost, the engine management light used to flash. And naively, I used to say, oh, it's a loose connection. That bit me on the arse quite badly, because here we are with a broken car. That's cost me a fucking fortune to get back on the road, because that was telling me it was detecting knock. Anyway, I've learnt my lesson. The other thing that this car was starting to do was use oil, you know, and probably one of the catastrophic mistakes I made was being out and about and deciding to check the oil and realizing that the oil and the level on the dipstick wasn't, you've got like minimum and maximum, the oil level was like halfway. In my opinion now, RB25s, that's a big no-no. Don't do that. Make sure your oil is always full, if not slightly above the full mark. And the reason for that is, if you don't know your RB25 engines, they're very good at picking the oil up and getting it to the head, but they're not so good at getting the oil back from the head down to the crank. Yeah, well, down to the crank actually, down to the sump. You can put restrictors in, you can, you know, and another mistake that I made was putting an N1 oil pump, and I've done it again, but this time I'm going to be more aware. I haven't done anything fancy with this engine, partly because I couldn't afford to. I wanted the car back on the road, and I've spent the money on the bolt-ons. I know that there's people that are going to say, you stupid fool, you should have just done the engine first. In a real world, yes, I should have, but I couldn't afford it. So my theory, my method in doing this was spend the money on the outside, so that when it was to ever blow up again, where, God forbid it doesn't, at least all I'm changing technically is an engine, and worst case scenario, a turbo. You know, everything else is done. You know, I couldn't afford to do, there was no point me spending all my money on a forged engine and then having to run a bloody cracked manifold. I just physically couldn't afford it. And the main reason I couldn't afford it was because I was in the middle of saving up for that bloody Troublemaker car. And there was a time in the savings, because I blew this car up halfway through the deal of saving up with Troublemaker, that I thought, I'm not going to pull through on this deal. And I had to phone Dean and say, look, I can't do this, you know, I can't justify the amount of money that it's now going to have to go into this car and then save up for your car, because I really wanted that car. And he waited. That man waited for 2 years on a gentleman's agreement, you know, just a handshake to say, I'll buy your car after 2 years. So yeah, and that was a lot of the reason why I couldn't afford where I was. But I like my cars. I love my 33s. Okay, I love this car to bits. So engine is just a standard engine. It's just a stock engine. There's nothing fancy. Obviously, head gasket and that kind of stuff has been uprated. I suppose let's cut the crap and let's look and show you properly what's underneath here. And there you have it. As I mentioned before, I'd already bought the RB26 covers in polished. That is an Ortec oil separator. Now the reason why I've gone there is probably overkill again, because this here is an oil catch tank. The reason why I've gone for that the Ortec oil separator is only because it's working on Troublemaker, because Troublemaker's got the same setup. So, you know, it's one of these things you go on to Google and you try and establish how something works and how it should be, and you come away more confused. So it works on that car, it's going to work on this car. I'm just going to copy. It's got the exact same pipes as Troublemaker. I do have the covers, they're in the boot of the car to go over here, so it is going to look the same. This is the Otaku garage intake manifold that I was talking about. It came with everything, throttle body, the intake, the fuel rail. I have been advised to change the throttle body, but for now it's going to stick because it's not like I'm going to be tracking this car anytime soon. Yeah, so Mishimoto radiator, because the other radiator was pretty bunged up with rusty water and crap. Yeah, so I just wanted the car looking a little bit more neater. Fortunately, with it being stood for so long, bodywork seems to be okay. You know, I know it's spent a lot of time in MB's unit, so I've been quite lucky with that. ECU is under this cover there. So when you buy a Link ECU, in case you've never dealt with Link and never had a Link, and you're looking at them, when you look at the Link ECU, you don't get the housing. So this housing with the sticker and all that crap, that's an RB25 standard ECU housing. You just literally get a motherboard. It's still there because it's obviously still needing a map. There's no point putting everything away if it's going to be pulled out. This is an AEM wideband sensor. It's just curled up at the moment because it's obviously going to get plumbed up at some point and set in the dashboard. That was originally a plan that was part of the thing that MB was going to do for me, is mount all the gauges, because in the spare bedroom I have a lot of gauges that I wanted to put in the car. But as I've mentioned before, COVID things, they've kind of got me sitting back at finances, and I'm going to try and do that myself. It's wired in, and I'm going to put gauges and that kind of stuff in myself, just to keep costs down, and also maybe learn a little bit, you know. I mean, you can see that it's covered in dust. Try and get you closer. You can see that it's covered in dust from being in the unit. The gear gator, it's monkey. It's pretty monkey. I can't even remember what's in the bloody center console. The seats are absolutely filthy, so they need a really good clean. What's in the boot. This is going to be an upcoming video because I can't remember what's in here. But yes, the boot is full. Okay, so, and you can see the state of it up there. So I really want to clean this car up. I suppose I better stop talking crap and prove to you that this car actually does start without MB Motorsport. I have the key. You don't know how much I've missed these keys. Should we give it? I'm going to give it a start. I'm not going to be revving it or anything like that because it's still running in. But there's no harm in me starting it. That's the other thing that's quite surprising with this car. It's still got the original battery from when it died, and it still is enough power to start the car up. Yeah, cold start. Here we come. Hell to the yeah. That whirring noise you can hear is the intake. So there you have it. GFJ is home. That's all from me today. Until next time.